So do you feel that you struggle with your club face being far too open through the golf swing, can give all sorts of different types of shots? Many golfers struggle with this. Well, we're going to show you 3 reasons why that club face might be open, and therefore more importantly, 3 fixes for that open face. So thank you once again for joining me here at the Forest of Arden on a very kind of wintry, cold, grey February morning. And we're going to talk in this video about the club face, which very often is referred to as the king in the golf swing. Get that under control and you can play some better golf. We're going to show you in this video 3 fixes if you have an open club face during your golf swing. Just before we get started, if you are new to my channel, if you are not a subscriber, I would absolutely love you to do that. There is a link down below in the description box, or there's a link at the end of the video if you'd rather wait for that. I would love this to be the best golfing year of your life, and hopefully with your interaction in my videos we can help you do that. So an open club face is one of those things which plagues so many golfers, and it has so many knock-on effects through the golf swing that you might have a fault in your golf swing which you can see visibly through the camera, and maybe not realise that's actually due to an open face. It tends to create a lot of things that are present in a lot of golf swings. It tends to promote an out to in swing. It tends to promote a early release. It tends to promote high ball flights. It tends to promote poor strikes. And that's just a short list, but a list of things that really we see golfers coming in talking to us a lot about. Poor strikes, slicing across it, high ball flights. So fixing an open club face is going to help us eradicate some of those things from your game. So we're going to talk very much about the grip, the wrist angles and the release. So the first thing we're going to do is grip. If you have a weak grip, then the very, very good chance that the club face is going to be open. A weak grip would be when your hands are rotated towards the target. Obviously, if I was swinging this way, my target would be down this way. So if my hands are rotated towards my target, that would suggest that my grip is weak. I absolutely love this little exercise. I've done this numerous times before. T-peg into the thumb and the index finger on the golf club. Place your hands on the golf club. If that T-peg, when you pick up the golf club and the leading edge is vertical, if that T-peg points forward of the golf club, that would indicate that your grip is weak. This here shows me that my grip is weak. I want to be able to get to the point where the T-peg is pretty much straight down that club shaft down towards the club head, as you can see there. Too strong would be when it heads over this way. Now, that does work from the trail hand as well, so I could have a weak lead hand and a weak trail hand. That's a real recipe for an open club face. So let's take a grip and let's make sure that our grip is neutral. So that would be, as we say, get our set up, and that T-peg wants to be nicely straight down the grip, as you can see there. And again, that would happen with both of my hands. Again, you can see that T-peg is running right down towards that club head. Now, if you do that little exercise and that feels a little strange, a little different, then that would indicate that your grip is a little bit weak. It will take a bit of time, a few reps, a bit of practice to get that to feel comfortable. But the first thing I see as a fault for why that club face is open through the golf swing is a weak lead hand or a weak trail hand. Very often it's that lead hand, the glove hand that we see being fairly weak. So check that grip to begin with. So let's move on. Let's assume that you've now got a fantastically perfect grip. You all have. The perfect grip gives you a much greater chance of having a neutral club face, but it doesn't guarantee it. So if we move the club into this position here, and I've got a little bit of wrist set here just to highlight this, what I can do is I can actually twist the golf club, and as I twist the golf club, you can see how that changes the angle of the club face. Now, if you look a little closely at my lead hand, you'll see that what I'm actually doing is I'm actually what we call arching this lead wrist and cupping this lead wrist. And what that does is effectively it changes where that club face points. And obviously I'm doing this without changing how my hand is applied to the golf club. So I can do this with weak, strong and a neutral grip. So if I rotate my club this way and I arch my wrist, that tends to close the face. If I cup my wrist, that tends to open the face. So a neutral grip at the start can still see me get the club open at the top if I have my lead wrist very, very cupped. You can see that there. So if I move it towards more of an arch position, you'd see that from a Dustin Johnson or Brooks Koepka, that's tending to move the club face to a more closed position. So the second way that you're going to control that open face is with what we call wrist angles. Now, when you take a setup to the golf ball, there's a very, very good chance that your lead wrist will have a little bit of a cup to begin with at setup. That's absolutely fine, that's fairly normal. But we need to make sure that's gone by the time we get to the top of the golf swing. For me, the top of the golf swing. What I would like you to therefore feel is that the logo on your glove is starting to, in the backswing, rotate and point more up towards the sky. Now you can see if I actually get it to point towards the sky, that's going to get an excessively arched wrist and a very closed club face. So we don't necessarily ever want to get that glove logo to point to the sky, because that would probably close the face too much in many cases. But we know that the feel and the reel are very different, and that will be what you have to feel if you have this cupped wrist to get that to a more neutral position. So the feeling of that glove logo to the sky will also get the palm of the right hand very much more underneath the golf club, and that is how we're going to control that club face. That twist that you apply, that arching of that wrist, has to be also maintained through the downswing. It's no good if we get this at the top and then as we start to pull down we go back towards a cupped position. So when we get to our last delivery, again the feeling would be that this wrist is very much arched. We don't want it arched, we want it pretty flat, but we know that the feeling needs to be there in order to get it to be more neutral if it's in a cupped position. So that's the second thing that you can do to help you if you have an open club face. The final thing is just what we do from last parallel through impact. Let me find a decent delivery position for you. So we'll say here, everything's pretty well primed. I've got the club face in position. I've got my arms nicely structured. From here, if I was to just uncock my wrists, I can deliver the club to the ball with a severely open club face. So even though, 2 to 3 feet from the ball, everything was well organized, I can still make things go wrong. I can still deliver that club with a severely open face. So what we have to do is we have to uncock the wrists. We have to kind of rotate or supinate this lead arm, and that's how we control the face. Very, very difficult to do, as you can imagine, at 90, 100, 115 miles an hour, as we see from these top players. So what we're going to do, if you feel like everything else is good, but from last parallel you still leave the face open, again, we're going to go through a feel. This is a feel, this is not the reality. I want you to imagine that the palm on your lead hand would be pointing to the sky just post impact. So what would that look like? Well, if you can imagine this is my delivery, I want to feel like as I hit the ball, I rotate through and the palm starts to face up towards the sky. If I take my glove hand off now, you can see my palm is up towards the sky. Have a look at that club face, very much pointing down towards the ground. Will you see any elite players with that position post impact? You will not, no. These are feels, remember, not the reality. What we will tend to find if you're an open face player from here is you will have this palm facing very much down towards the ground and the face open. So the opposite is what we're trying to feel. Delivery, and then as we go through, we're trying to rotate and get that palm facing up towards the sky, gets that club face rotating through. So for me, if a golfer really struggles with an open face, there's 3 generally places that I would look to begin with. It's how they hold the golf club, it's how they control the wrist angles, and it's how they release the club through impact. Like I said back at the start, if you feel that you've got an open face, please do not go to the range and try and do all those 3 things, because it probably will make you worse. What I'd love you to do though is maybe go through a bit of a checkpoint, see what the grip is like. Check what your wrist's like at the top and check what your release is right, and make subtle changes to those until you can start to see the ball flight moving back towards the center. We want to make these changes subtle. We want to keep an eye on what's happening to the ball flight as we do this, rather than just going steamrolling in, make all those changes and suddenly that doesn't work. You give it 20 shots, doesn't work, and you go back to what you did before. Let's make it a systematic approach. Let's structure our practice so we can start to monitor what's working, what isn't, and what we need to maybe work a little bit more on and a little bit less on. Let's go ahead and hit one. Appreciate there's a lot of talking in that video, not a lot of hitting, so let's finish up with a driver. I'm actually on the forward tee here on this par 4, so that green is possibly in range, although this is the first swing of the day, so I wouldn't be happy with anything just short. Oh, balance wasn't great, but the shot wasn't bad. We'll call that one, we'll say I got away with that because the balance wasn't great, but the result was pretty good. So if you struggle with an open face, hopefully that video gives you a fix which you can apply to help you hit straighter drives. Just like that one, you might even be able to keep your balance a little bit better than me. Thank you very much for watching. Usual stuff is down below, comments box down there, there's a like button. Also the link to subscribe, like we said at the start, and also one over here as well. I would love you, I should say, to be part of my channel, and together we can help you play some better golf this year. Thanks for watching, we'll see you again soon.